Good evening, everybody. We are back. The Late Night on Campus. We're live. It's Friday, August 11th, 2017. I'm your host, the Big Man on Campus, joined by our Friday co-host, Joe Duffy from AllShareInsurance.com. Joe Duffy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Football season is here. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I'm glad to spend this time with you before you get that haircut tonight.
11 o'clock. You know better. You know me, Joe Duffy.
I do. If I don't know you by now, I will never.
You do know me by now. Good stuff. Yes, football's here. It's not Christmas. It's the best time of the year. It's indeed now the best time of the year. Football. I know you're engulfed in preseason right now, which I know you look like you have a winner tonight, Joe Duffy. Is that correct?
Well, let's not count your money while you're sitting at the table. But yeah, I thought I was going to get screwed by that fumble at the end of the first half with the Giants. I do have the Giants Steelers under, and hopefully the Steelers are going to take a knee here, which would make me 4-2 on the preseason if this game does stay under. So 67% start to the preseason, not bad, especially considering a lot of my best preseason angles have to do with betting against teams off a win under certain circumstances, et cetera, how teams react in the preseason based on their previous results. So far, so good, as long as nothing crazy happens in this final 57 seconds.
Well, we're rooted in, Joe Duffy. A couple seconds there to go. Hopefully looking like a winner. We'll get to a little bit of preseason a little bit later. Welcome in. People trickling in here. Welcome in to everyone out there. It is Friday evening. What do we have, Joe? No more Sundays without football, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Well, that's probably no. The last week of the preseason, they do not play on Sunday. So
okay.
The fourth week of the preseason, they all play like on Thursday night or something.
Either way, we'll still have college football at that time.
Very good point. Yes, Memorial. So that'll be right. I said Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend. There will be college football. You are correct.
And normally, yeah, on Saturday, Sunday, Labor Day weekend, they usually have some college. So football's upon us, folks.
It is upon us.
Baseball center stage, though, right now. Looks like you have a winner there, Joe Duffy, 20-12. That game just did move final, so nice call there on the under in the Giants-Pittsburgh game. We do have some baseball, Joe, tonight. One game did get postponed, Washington, San Francisco, Stratton, and Jackson, so we'll have to worry about that one at another time. Interesting. I'm not far from the Washington area. It hasn't rained here at all, which is weird. Must be a little clipper system of some sort. And looks like they had too much rain down there, Joe. But
we see that. I'm telling you, we see that all the time. I'm not that far from the Braves' current stadium and their past couple stadiums, and I've seen it where the weather outside my window is completely different than it is at the stadium. In fact, last time I went to a Braves game with one of my sons, and my wife called and said it was pouring around here, and it was plenty fine there. So we see that a lot here down south.
Yeah, fairly interesting. It looks like just over Washington and Baltimore, there's like a swath of rain, and it just hasn't really moved. So welcome in, Armin, Vig, everyone out there trickling in. Welcome in. Other baseball. We won't go through every game, just some of the notables. Jimmy Nelson's getting absolutely drilled tonight. Joe, I know you and I talked about this one before the show. I talked to you about 6:30, and we were chatting about this game. And Donnie and I kind of sniffed this one out. The line didn't make any sense. Look, folks, the Brewers aren't very good. Okay, I mean they've lost 5 in a row. They haven't been good since the All-Star break. They've really almost just seemingly packed it in, which is interesting. They're only a couple games out, but they just really got slapped in the face the first week out of the All-Star break. And Jimmy Nelson, who had been very good at home, got absolutely worked tonight. 9 earned runs over 3 2/3. Joe Duffy, what do you have to say about this one?
Well, that was, knock on wood, like I said, has it been my best baseball season? No, but I'm pretty happy with the past several days, and really good regression to the mean, which basically is what, as you said, Nelson did do tonight, fortunately. So a big underdog winner comes in. But yeah, this is a good time of the year for overachieving pitchers. And as you said, when the line it doesn't seem to make sense, it's kind of the odds makers telling you that there is going to be some regression to the mean. And our computer likes to isolate those situations. We like to, what I always say, use the odds makers' knowledge against them. And this is a good time of the year for that in baseball, especially, that favorite phrase of mine, regression to the mean. I'll probably use it 4 or 5 times before this broadcast is out, maybe.
Yeah, and you're right about this one. And, when the line just doesn't make sense. It's usually best, like Joe said, to go the other way. I mean, Cincinnati closed around plus 175. At the end of the day, Joe, not a bad lineup there. I mean, they're not useless. They're a decent little lineup. The problem tonight was obviously Homer Bailey.
Yeah, we were talking before, like at the beginning of the year, we thought Milwaukee, they obviously got off to that nice start, but we did expect them to level off a little bit, and luckily it did tonight when I went against them as a big favorite, and Milwaukee, I think, was playing over their heads at the beginning of the year, and it's finally starting to get some payback going against them.
Cleveland gets the job done 5-0. Only laying 120 in this game behind a dazzling performance from Carlos Carrasco. You know, Carrasco's an irritating guy, Joe. I mean, I've backed this guy a couple times. Whenever you back him, it seems like he gets crushed. When no one cares about him, he seems to always pitch well. 8 innings, 2 hits. Did have a no-hitter, I believe, in the 6th inning. Nice job here by the Indians. Most of this had to do with very good pitching from Carrasco. But you look at the 5th inning, 5 runs for the Cleveland Indians, and they cover here and get the job done as short road favorites. Nice job for the Indians here.
They did, and that's another one that would seem to be an offline if you looked at nothing more than the pitcher stats, pitchers years to date. So that was one of those where I do have an angle that says go with a pitcher who has a much worse ERA at this time of the year. Unfortunately, that did pay off as well.
Rob Refsnyder is the worst MLB player I've ever seen in my life. 2 errors costing them all 4 runs and 4 strikeouts. Feel bad for this guy, and it's only 1 game, but come on. Yeah, Mojo, I wasn't exactly crying before bed when the Yankees got rid of Rob Refsnyder. He wasn't always one of my favorite players. Look, I mean, things happen. I mean, obviously that sucks that happened to you. But again, I mean, Rob Refsnyder is a fringe major league player. Those guys are going to get you, Joe. Those poor players are going to hurt you more than once. So don't expect this to be the last time you get hurt by a bad player.
And this time of the year, it's where a lot of teams are going to be bringing up guys. But yeah, there's no question about that, and really more so when it comes to the bullpen. But that's another story altogether because, yeah, you're going to get killed by pitchers who are borderline major leaguers, and they're coming in situations out of the bullpen, and it drives you nuts. But it takes some discipline. That occasionally you just got to suck it up and come back the next day.
Big man, what was up with the Packers blitzing Clay Matthews on 3rd down in the preseason? Agreed. Shitty move by Dom Capers, a weak move. Mm-hmm. I think there's that brotherhood in the NFL where, at least in the first preseason, actually in most preseason games, you don't game plan really. You're not, showing offenses and defenses, and just kind of a bush league move by Dom Capers. I mean, blitzing Carson Wentz. I mean, just throwing his first team defense out there to kind of have at it. I mean, what was up with that, Joe? I mean,
well, he should have watched my preseason primer carried right here on SBR. I did my preseason previews, and I said it really caught my eye that Green Bay, very rare case, where on Monday they were game planning for this game, and you almost never see that in week 1, and that turned out to be one of those nuggets. Go look at the archives if you guys weren't watching it, and hopefully next week I'll do some more of the preseason previews here on SBR. So you were actually told about that before the game, that Green Bay did some very rare game planning for week 1 of the preseason.
How about that? Joe Duffy heading in. What would you have, binoculars outside of the practice? Or
I know how to use Google. Like I said, Jeff, that's the one thing. I always said when I was in college, I did much better on research papers than I did quizzes. I could not compete with Jeff when it comes to knowledge off the top of my head. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, but I know how to find things on the computer. That's
how about that? Good stuff, Joe Duffy. But again, I guess more of what I was wondering is why are they doing that? I mean,
I know that's very true. Teams always go with vanilla offenses and vanilla defenses in the first couple of weeks. They just basically want to see how their personnel, what they can do, not so much how they can read defenses, etc. So that's definitely very rare where teams will do that and blitz like crazy. And in fact, that's one thing. A lot of teams, when they do that, they will announce it, but it's usually a team with maybe a new defensive coordinator and or a new head coach where they want to break in some schemes. So that's definitely outside their protocol for a veteran.
Now, Joe, were you on the Pack? You were on the Packers last night.
I did give no, I did give them as a free play on the SBR video, but that was not one of my premium picks. And in hindsight, maybe I should have listened to myself. But that was definitely one of the free picks on the SBR video that we gave.
Yankees, Joe, have wakened up. 8th inning, Addison Reed comes in. Brett Gardner hit by a pitch, and Aaron Hicks off the DL. How about this? 2-run shot. Gary Sanchez singles. We have a new ball game, Joe, in the Bronx. No one out, 2 men on, 3-2 Yanks. Aaron Judge gets a walk. How about this turn of events? Donnie and I did talk about this game. Line didn't make sense in this one at all. Yankees have lost, Boston's won 8 in a row. Yet they were listed as underdogs today in this game. Still has a little bit of a way to go here, but going to be an interesting finish up in the Bronx. Does Joe Duffy have a rooting interest in the Premier League? What a game today. Yes, Arsenal-Leicester City was fantastic today. If every game in football was like that, I think all of us would watch it. Both teams, a score came in, the over came in. If you had Leicester City, which I got to say, I thought it was a great price on Leicester. You're getting a really good price there on a team that could score goals. Joe, did you see that game today?
I did not. And the ironic thing is I'm a big fan of soccer. I was probably a bigger fan of soccer before I was a handicapper, but I've become so obsessed with these American sports. So that's kind of the irony that I actually follow soccer less since I've become a professional handicapper. But yeah, years ago, I used to, on PBS, I would watch that English soccer and the soccer made in Germany. And yeah, if I ever decided to tour the world, it's not really one of those things I'd want to do. I would love to see a game in the English Premier League and the Spanish League and the Bundesliga. So I do love soccer, but I don't follow it as closely as you would think that I would.
You don't have a team you root for, Joe?
I do not have a team that I root for. The U.S. in the World Cup, it's it. And I do like I have not been down to see our Atlanta team, the Atlanta United, in the MLS this year, but that's minor league soccer, really.
I'm trying to look at you. Let me think what kind of EPL team you look like. You look like a, I don't know, maybe a Chelsea fan, maybe?
I could be. I remember growing up, I used to root for Kevin Keegan in the he was a British player, and he was, I think, my favorite player. Now I can't even remember who he was on, but I remember he was my favorite player growing up.
Newcastle United, I believe.
Yes. Okay. There you go.
There you go. They just returned to the EPL. They're back in the big boys now. Joe Duffy likes Hull City. No, he just said he rooted for Newcastle United a little bit, who they've just made it back up. I know we have a listener that's a Newcastle fan. He's from that area. So, Joe, we'll get back to the Bronx, see what happens there. Joe Kelly, hard thrower, coming in, the hard throwing righty coming in. Wild game down in South Philadelphia. How about that? Of course, tonight after last night's snooze fest, Donnie Wright said, and I were at the game. Tonight 6-6. So typical. We're there one day and $1 short, Joe Duffy. Interesting game here. Over came in easily, which I mentioned I liked on the show this morning. Pavetta and Lugo weren't much of a pitching matchup in this one, Joe. High-scoring game in South Philly tonight. I do have the Phillies, so that's nice. I know they blew, a 4-0 lead earlier, 3-0 lead, I think they were up. So it's nice to see there from behind. And, yeah, there's a cool stadium down there. Even though, your buddy, he may not be drinking the greatest beer in the world, I'm glad to see that he did get a cheesesteak while he was there. Yeah, I think Tweet was just looking for any kind of beer he could find, and I think he just stumbled upon Bud Light. I don't drink, so I can't really comment, but I do know Bud Light's not the greatest beer in the world, Joe Duffy. The Packers are going to be a great ATS bet all year. What do you think about that statement from Mojo, Joe? It's hard to say. I know I was saying before that I don't like to handicap the entire year at a time. That's why I don't like futures. They showed last year they got some pieces missing. Of course, they got the all-world quarterback, but they still have a couple pieces that they're missing. Usually the teams that are great spread teams are teams that were bad teams last year. You want to look for teams that are going to improve, and then, of course, the teams that you want to go against generally made the playoffs last year. So you want to look at teams that are on the downside, and I do think I know we're going to broach a topic tonight. I think the Dallas Cowboys might be one of those teams for sure. Pittsburgh beats Toronto tonight. Tyone gets the win here against the Toronto Blue Jays north of the border. Pittsburgh did it behind just 4 hits. However, they were big hits. They were important hits. Two teams tough to figure out. I know I didn't have much in this game, but Pittsburgh cashes as a small underdog, so they go on the road and get the job done there. A couple other games, then we'll move on here. The Atlanta Braves are getting crushed tonight behind Michael Fulton-Avitz. I know St. Louis looked like a false flag type of play tonight. I don't know if Donnie Wrightson was on it. I know we talked about that one. Anything here, Joe, that you had?
No, I was listening to the game. I was picking up my son at work. He refuses to drive, and I know that they were saying the Braves, although they have no errors, the fielding was so-so in this game. Maybe some balls that they should have gotten to, but yeah, the Braves are getting crushed here. And I know there was some sharp money on Atlanta, but unfortunately for the Sharps, this is not their night.
Yankees, here they come, baby. Didi Gregorius, boom. Joe, we might have a lead here. I hear the cheering in the background. What is going on here? I don't have it on in front of me. It is tied in the Bronx.
I think that's the women at your door. That's the cheering in the background. They want to get in.
Yeah, I actually have two. I have 2 blondes here on the couch. They're watching some sort of movie. I don't know what it is.
Tell them to put their clothes on, for crying out loud.
Hey, put your bra on, lady. Come on. Look a little presentable here. By the way, Joe, did you see my fortune cookie a little bit earlier?
I wish I did. No, I should have, because I got a million computers in here. I did not see it. What did it say?
It said, many admire your social and physical appearance. So
why wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I often said that, I don't understand why people don't see it, but the women seem to see it. But again, I'm not mad that the men don't see it. As long as the women see it, that's all I care about.
Yeah, women email me all the time, and they want to know if I can introduce them to you. And, every time I contact you, you say you're already fighting them off. You don't need any more.
Yeah, for the 8,000th time, loose cunt, how much were they being? I don't pay for women. Never have, never will. I don't need to pay for them. I just talk to them, and they come over. Joe's son refuses to drive. Him and Peter Loschek can take the bus everywhere together. I guess Peter doesn't drive either, Joe. So
yeah, my son's going to be a city boy. I'm a suburban boy, but he will definitely be a city boy.
Very good. Looking like the Yankees are really in business here, Joe. Tie game, no outs. But Todd Frazier is at bat, and that's not a good thing because he's been absolutely brutal this year. Wild game in D-Town, Minnesota and Detroit. Another over that I recommended, 7-4 here. The scoring is not over yet. 2 pitchers in Anibal Sanchez and Kyle Gibson that, Joe, I think kind of late in the year when you see these gas cans against each other, it's better to just kind of go with what makes sense.
Yeah, and not surprisingly, this is one of those square angles that actually does pretty well. I know that a lot of people like to bet divisional dogs, and I did have a pretty good divisional dog angle here. So Minnesota, let's hope they can cling on. But as you said, a lot more scoring likely to happen. So I'm certainly not counting that one in.
Houston is struggling right now, Joe. This will be 4 losses in a row if they can't come back here tonight. Charlie Morton was Charlie Morton tonight, and Cole Hamels has been very good tonight.
He has. He's definitely found the fountain of youth. Didn't touch that game.
I hear more cheering, Joe. Yankees might have grabbed the lead here. This would be a big win if the Yankees can get it, and they have taken the lead, Joe. Todd Frazier has delivered. This is what we brought him here for. And how about that? The Todd father in front of Tom's River and the city of New York delivers. It is a 4-3 ball game in the Bronx. How about that, Joe Duffy?
Shameless name calling, but Todd Frazier had the game-winning home run when we saw them at Yankee Stadium earlier this year against the Milwaukee Brewers. And I was listening to the post-game show, and John Sterling did not even say the Yankees win. Instead, he said, "Downtown goes Frazier. Downtown goes Frazier."
Yeah, he has those little quirks for everybody. Yeah. But no, this would be a big win if they can get it. I mean, Aroldis obviously will come in for the 9th. I mean, first game of the series. Look, Joe, these lines don't make sense. Sometimes you really need a miracle, but sometimes they come in. Obviously, you still have another inning here, but this is what the Yankees look to win games like this. This is not how they drew it up. But again, now you have the opportunity. Your great bullpen comes in. This is time to shut it down. So if the Yankees can get a win here, it'd be really great. So back to Houston quickly, and a great point here by one of our listeners. They've dropped 9 of 13. The Astros really struggling here, Joe. This team is, like I've told everyone, their pitching is just not very good. They did nothing to get better at the trade deadline, and yeah, look, their offense is good, but when you go down 5-0, you look at getting swept by the Chicago White Sox. They just really haven't played very well, and I think not doing anything at the deadline is going to hurt this team.
Yeah, Jeff, we were talking about a little bit off of the air. When I first got started in this business, I had a lot of success betting on team streaks, and that really worked in the 80s and the 90s, and then it kind of tailed off a little bit, but as a general rule of thumb, I would love to go against ice-cold favorites, perceived good teams like the Astros would be, and normally, in previous years, based on my philosophies, I would have been on the Texas Rangers here, but it's a game that I avoided. But you're right. Houston's probably a good team to fade right now.
Yeah, they very much are, and you're getting back good prices if you're betting against them in certain instances. Over the week with the Chicago series tonight, they were a small favorite. But I mentioned I kind of liked them tonight. I thought they were this is probably a good way to. You're facing your in-state rival. You can kind of get it straight, but a tough start there. Most of the other games are scoreless. The Dodgers are threatening in the first behind Rich Hill tonight. They ended up closing, Joe, at around 290. 280, 290. You wager with a very nice line at 265. So they were definitely getting some Padre money there, but very high line for Rich Hill. But if you listened to the show earlier, you should have been putting out the 1.5 because they've been on fire on the run line. Big man, you're a high roller. Love it. Get those girls in the video. No, Mojo, they will not be on video. They are here only to, be my slaves. So they won't be on video. But
that's by subscription, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
That video, yeah.
Yes, you can actually purchase. I'll take a picture if you want. Those pictures actually run $25 a piece to start. Just facial shots. I'm only kidding. I don't have any girls here. I don't do that. Shit start for Taijuan Walker. Yes, Taijuan Walker's been very bad tonight. Tough start to his night. But again, is there any surprise there? Taijuan Walker's another guy that seems like every time you back him, he doesn't pitch well. He's thrown a lot of pitches. In 2 innings, he's thrown 52 pitches, too many walks, too many hit batters, just not a good night. By the way, the Dodgers scored 1-0. Cody Bellinger with a single. He was then thrown out at second, so a 1-0 lead for the Dodgers. Joe, let's jump into a little football. I'm kind of sick of talking about baseball, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm ready for football season for sure.
Yeah, I think we all are. Let's jump into a little football. Obviously, big news today. We talked about it earlier. We were actually right on the air as this kind of was going on. Ezekiel Elliott gets a 6-game suspension. He will appeal that suspension, Joe. But if it ends up sticking, which it looks like they're trying to set a precedent with the domestic violence stuff. And Joe, again, it's not about him committing crimes or if he didn't get committed or arrested really for anything. It's what this looks like in the eyes of the league. One too many conduct policy violations from Ezekiel Elliott. How will this affect the lines, Joe, early on?
Oh, I think that there's no question of a major effect on the line. I don't know if any of us were completely shocked. I don't think we expected to be more than 6 games, maybe 4 games, and who knows? It could be something like when Ben Roethlisberger was suspended a couple years ago. I think that suspension was originally 6 games, and then he appealed and he got it down to 4. But I do think that they will most likely, the Cowboys will be a pretty good go-against team early in the year because look, all of a sudden you're not going to have the play action pass, and everybody was talking about how great Dallas's offensive line was last year, but we'll see how good they are blocking for McFadden and Rod Smith and Alfred Morris. And I remember how this offensive line wasn't so great when Brandon Weeden was a quarterback 2 years ago. So I think Dallas is going to be a pretty good go-against team for sure.
Yeah, and they definitely have a tough start to the year. We've mentioned that some of the Giants and the a couple of the other teams. I think they play the Packers at some point. So definitely a tough start to the season for the Cowboys. And again, I mean, look, it's not about just not having him in there. It's also about, Dak Prescott's going to have more pressure on him. You obviously a clear decline as far as with some of their backups. So again, we'll see what happens. Even if it's 4 games, it's still a lot. It's still going to hurt whatever they've done. So if you made a win total or future bet on the Cowboys, sorry, but definitely not something you want to see. Big trade went down also today in the NFL. The Bills, Rams, and Eagles were active. And, as an Eagle fan, I know Donnie and I were excited about them getting Ronald Darby. And many will point to the desperation of the Eagles, which was probably not necessary, Joe. They went ahead and took Sidney Jones in the second round of the draft, even though he was injured. They were desperate. They gave up a 3rd-round pick to get Ronald Darby. He assesses a need that they have, but they lose a slot receiver in Jordan Matthews. You also look at the rest of this trade. E.J. Gaines goes to Buffalo, a guy that fits that system a little bit more than Darby. And you look at what the Rams did. They get Sammy Watkins, a nice little weapon for our friend Jared Goff, who's coming off of kind of a tougher year. What are your thoughts on this trade, Joe?
Well, a couple of them. As far as Philadelphia, I mean, I was moderately surprised. I know they got good depth at receiver with Jeffrey Aguilar, Torrey Smith, but still, when you've got a guy that you're trying to make in your franchise quarterback, I mean, any quarterback, you want to give him more weapons, but especially Carson Wentz, where you're really hoping that he builds on a pretty good, although inconsistent, rookie year. As far as the Rams, they clearly need to get a target for Jared Goff. Talk about a franchise quarterback. Look, I wasn't big on Goff, and I think historically there are exceptions, John Elway most notably, but historically quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round who had losing records in college didn't turn out to be very good pros. I know, Tim Couch is certainly among them, but I wasn't high on Goff, but at the same time, if he's going to be the franchise quarterback, it would help to get him a weapon. And Sammy Watkins is from the Rams standpoint. It obviously, it all comes down to, is Watkins going to be healthy? I think there are some serious questions about that. And maybe the Bills got somebody a little bit more reliable. Jordan Matthews has had 225 receptions the past 3 years. If you'd be certain that Sammy Watkins would be healthy, it might be a slight downgrade, but they certainly have now a safer option to throw to. So Buffalo still has some weapons, but I understand it from the Rams standpoint. Look, if you're going to build around a young quarterback, you got to have somebody who he can throw the ball to.
Yeah, the Bills really kind of whiffed on Sammy Watkins. If you remember, they traded 2014 to move up to take him, only to miss out on Mike Evans and Odell Beckham, 2 guys that, look, I think Mike Evans is a top 5 receiver in this league. I mean, there's not many I would pick over Mike Evans. I mean, he has something they all don't have, and that's amazing size. I mean, this kid's an absolute maniac. I love Mike Evans. He'd be a guy that you'd be hard-pressed for me to find a receiver that I'd want over Mike Evans. I mean, obviously Antonio Brown's great and 1 or 2 others, but Mike Evans is a specimen. So I agree. They definitely won there. Look, I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know if it's the best situation for Watkins, though. But again, we don't know what Goff is and what he'll be. Look, I guess this also shows that the Eagles like Nelson Aguilar, which I don't know how much sense that makes. Aguilar has gotten many opportunities here. Let's hope he's the guy there. Let's hope he can play kind of wherever. He needs to be good. This guy was really disappointing last year, but we'll see. I mean, they got a cornerback, which they had to have, but I think for Jim Schwartz, this is a nice move for him. They finally have someone that they can kind of plug right in and could play right away. So you don't see a lot of these trades kind of right before the season, but definitely took the attention off Ezekiel Elliott tonight, Joe.
I guess, but I think if you have a veteran proven quarterback, you might be more likely to trade away a weapon or 2. But I'm a little surprised, considering that Wentz is entering his 2nd year, that they would be eager to give him fewer weapons. But I don't know. From a football standpoint, maybe it does, but it doesn't really take Ezekiel Elliott out. Ezekiel Elliott's also on the news pages, so he's being talked about on the news shows as well as the talk shows, but maybe from a pure football standpoint, it does.
So yeah, I mean, you look at tomorrow though, Joe. I know you're an NFLX kind of guy. Tomorrow we have some more games, actually 3 more games, and people are excited. I know Dallas actually plays tomorrow. Both these teams play, the Rams and the Cowboys. Joe, what do you have for tomorrow? Anything?
Yeah, as far as that game's concerned, the Cowboys, of course, have that game under their belt. In recent years, it hasn't been quite as great. I know like 5 years ago, people would religiously bet on the teams that played in the Hall of Fame game in their second game because the old adage, a team's going to improve the most from the first to the second game. Plus, teams are generally going to play their starters and their key players a little bit more in their second game. But I don't know if that's necessarily going to apply here. The Cowboys traditionally under Jerry Jones, and regardless of who the coach has been under Jerry Jones, they've never really taken the preseason all that seriously. The Rams are very thin on the defensive line. Jalen Smith is probably not going to make his debut for Dallas tomorrow, but nothing all that strong in that game so far. I still want to check some more notes before I decide whether or not to make a pick on that. As far as the Titans are concerned, look, the Jets quarterback, this will shock you. The Jets quarterbacks have been very underwhelming in practice from Hackenberg, although they said he's had a decent week, couple good practices this week. Josh McCown, Bryce Petty, they don't have really any weapons. Looks like Marcus Mariota is going to start. I think they want him to continue to develop chemistry. They said in camp, he and newly acquired Eric Decker, who was signed as a free agent, they've really gotten some chemistry, and with Rashard Matthews. The Titans are probably going to be playing some of their key players, at least for maybe 10, 15 snaps in this one, although DeMarco Murray is going to be out. And, as you mentioned, as far as the Raiders and the Cardinals do have a game under their belt. For those people who like to religiously bet on the team that played in the Hall of Fame game, they would be your bet. But, of course, the public has clearly already bet on that. Carson Palmer and the starters, though, they're going to play about 15 plays, so that could be most of the first quarter. And, Blaine Gabbert, look, he did look great in the Hall of Fame game. I'm still not sold on him, but now there may be, the door's been left open. He might be able to fight for that second quarterback position for Drew Stanton. I know a lot of people like betting quarterback battle, so theoretically one could be developing there. But the Raiders they're very deep at running back and wide receiver. They get a lot of weapons, and that's important in the preseason. And the Raiders have a battle for the backup quarterback position with or E.J. Manuel, I should say, and Connor Cook. And right now, Manuel has been the better of the two in camp. So if you like quarterback battles, there's definitely one at the backup position in Oakland, and there could be one at the backup position for the Cardinals. But clearly, both of these teams have their starting quarterbacks etched in stone, barring an injury. But we know that injuries can happen. The Raiders certainly know that.
Couple guys I'm looking forward to seeing Titans-wise. What are we going to see from Adoree Jackson? Their new cornerback, young kid out of USC, very fast. Interested to see what he has. Taywan Taylor out of West Kentucky. Tennessee, obviously, with decent backup. Matt Castle, a guy they brought in. The Jets are horrendous. Joe, I actually made a bet. I put a bet in on will there be a team that doesn't win a game this year at 12-1, and I did take a shot there with the Jets. So we'll see what happens. But again, I'm not a big preseason guy. I know you are, but we'll definitely watch your videos. I know you have those going on at SBR, which I got to say you are the guy I go to on preseason football, Joe Duffy.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, I've taken this seriously. It goes back to the early days where, like I said, we used to have kind of a fax network where we used to fax stuff back and forth. And I'm going to have to give credit to a guy whose reputation is less than stellar in this industry, Jeff Allen, who was an 800 tout. And he used to buy advertising from us on the Score phones. And he used to have some good contacts. I guess he'd give discounts to some of his customers who would fax stuff in those very early days, would look at before online existed, and people would send him news and notes from their local newspapers. And now it doesn't matter where you live. As far as I'm concerned, you live in every NFL city if you've got a computer in front of you.
Amen to that. Joe Duffy, people are asking about, is that a new Amazon Echo you have there?
Well, it's not. Yes, Santa Claus got me that. That's true. And I should have turned this sound down. I have one of those ringer duck. I guess my wife is coming home from picking up another one of the kids. I don't know if that was going off in the background, the little alarm. But yes, that is no. That's the echo. Yes.
Yeah, one of our illustrious listeners called that out, and I guess
Alexa, say hi to our illustrious listener.
Vig, welcome. Thank you.
Vig, welcome. Well, she's not saying anything. She doesn't listen to me, just like my wife and my daughter.
Okay, no one listens to you, Joe. All right. Who wouldn't listen to Joe Duffy? Come on.
Well, you should listen to me before placing a bet. That's for sure.
We definitely will when it comes to a little preseason football. Joe, a little bit of an update. Yankees still leading 5-3. They've added on, actually. They're still in the 8th inning. However, they're going to the 9th. Joe, what else are you on tonight? Anything?
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's so-so. The San Fran game got rained out. I do got Cincinnati, Baltimore later tonight. The Phillies, as I said, I'm hoping they make the comeback. Cleveland and Minnesota and the Cubs. So it's been okay so far. It's been okay recently. Well, I see the Mets took the lead, right? Yeah, it was 6-6 last I looked, but now they're up 7-6. So that game's been a seesaw affair and probably not going to go my way, but it's final now. So I lost that game.
I got to ask you, Joe, you're a cultural guy. You're a worldly guy. I always find it interesting to kind of look back after the Olympics in certain areas and kind of what they look like. Is there a bigger waste of money in the world than the Olympics? I mean, really? I mean, you look at some of the things that they construct. I mean, have you seen Rio after the Olympics, a year after?
Yeah, well, I remember the Olympics were here in '96, and I went to the Olympics. I can tell you that they are using some of the athletic dorms. They're being used. It's weird. I don't know how common this is around the country, but Georgia State used to be a true 100% commuter campus, and now I think their first dorms ever were after the Olympics, but there are some dorms that are actually shared between Georgia State and Georgia Tech. So I know at least some of the dorms are being used. Of course, the Olympic Stadium became Ted Turner Stadium, and it's not being shut down. It's actually going to be used by Georgia State for their football. So, at least Atlanta, I know that we got some criticism. It was the first time Juan Antonio Samaranch didn't call it the greatest Olympics ever, but I think Atlanta's done an okay job using our stuff here. So at least I can speak on that firsthand, but I don't know. I'm not sure anyone's done the in-depth study many years later as far as whether it was truly, well, I'm sure somebody has, but I think it was a decent investment here. And I do know we use some of the buildings still.
But you look at like in Rio, I mean, one of the Olympic pool that they use for swimming is green and sludgy now.
Yeah, I saw
Olympic
that,
athlete village deemed uninhabitable. Everything's starting to decay. It looks like apocalyptic almost. Amazing.
Yeah, it is. I know they had that Lake Placid when ESPN did their whatever it was, a 30 for 30. I know some of the Olympic Village was still there because they went back and did it from the Russian standpoint, the old Miracle on Ice. But it's up to the cities to maintain that, and I do know that in Rio they've had more than their share of financial problems. You're still going to invest money to maintain those buildings.
Mojo, I studied the AFC West schedule last night, and I really believe the Chargers can win that division. I don't know about that. Oakland is the team to beat there. Look, I think the Chargers will be a better football team. I really would have liked them if Mike Williams was healthy, but unfortunately, he is not healthy. I believe Forrest Lamp is also injured. I mean, Phillip Rivers just continues to get 1 year older. Forrest Lamp, their draft pick, torn ACL, just kind of a tough offseason for them right after the draft. Joe, you would agree. I'm not interested in the Chargers, right?
No, I'm not. And a term that I'll use even more than regression to the mean when it comes to NFL quarterbacks is predictably unpredictable. And that's the way Phillip Rivers has been. He's been feast or famine. As a general rule of thumb, when Rivers is playing well and he's a favorite, I like to go against him. And when he's playing poorly and he's an underdog is usually when I go with him. But Phillip Rivers is one of these guys, as far as I'm concerned, he's always been somewhere between like the 8th and the 12th best quarterback in the NFL. I've never considered him among the elite quarterbacks. And no, I would not make a team with Phillip Rivers as a quarterback as the favorites, but we're assuming that Carr has fully recovered from his injury for Oakland.
Yeah, and Denver could figure out their quarterback
Yeah.
situation and just a lot of things to deal with. Joe, the rally cat has been found. The Cardinals have found the small cat that was ran on the field. I'm glad to know that. I really didn't think I'd sleep tonight without knowing where that furry little feline was. They found him. How do you feel about that?
Well, I saw that was going to. I thought that was actually something that just went viral again. Did that not actually happen a couple years ago? Because when I saw that, I'm like, I had seen that, but maybe it did. I wasn't watching.
No, it has happened before. It's actually it happened in Miami a couple of times. One time where the cat climbed up the scoreboard, and the one the other day it was interesting. The cat kept biting the the handler.
Okay, see, I thought that was one that I had seen before, but maybe there was another one where he was bitten. But I did say it went viral, so maybe I really am good at predicting the future. Then maybe you should really sign up for my packages, because I swore that I had seen that one before. But
yeah, you maybe you can get into the cat predicting business.
There you go. I know my pussycats.
Good one, Joe. Very good joke tonight. Big man, is Man City 1.5 your best bet tomorrow? EPLs or other plays you really like? Manchester City is a play I really like. Brighton Hove Albion is Joe. Brighton Hove Albion, you know what they are? They're basically like a 16 seed that gets to the tournament. They're all excited for their game, and then the game actually comes, and they wish they were back at their dorm, puffing on a J and drinking a beer. That's what Brighton Hove Albion's going to be tomorrow. Haven't been to the Premier League in over 30 years. For anyone that doesn't know, Brighton Hove Albion, Brighton is a beach resort in the south of England. It's a very nice seaside town. It's quite like the Jersey Shore, Joe. And usually when you go to the Jersey Shore, you don't really want to play sports. I'm not saying that they're going to get crushed into oblivion. They're going to be relegated this year. They're not a good team. And yes, I think Manchester City is the best team in the Premier League. So for me, they are my best bet tomorrow. But I will say I do have some plays in the Championship as well as the Premier League. So I'll put those out a little bit later. So Joe, I not only bet the Premier League, but I bet the second level football with the Championship. Laugh my ass off. Brighton in the Premiership will be profitable. Okay, Mr. Goxer. Good luck with that. Keep betting on them. I'm sure you'll make a ton of money betting on them each week. They're actually one of the worst teams in the Premier League, but all right. Good luck with that. Keep betting on them. Joe, do you have anything to say to that?
No, like I said, as much as I love soccer, I just haven't really followed it. But so Leicester City, they haven't had they did not have the hangover. They're doing well this year, is what you're telling me.
Well, the first game was today. They didn't have a great year last year. They were kind of middle of the table after their amazing run to glory in 2015. But no, today they played well. I mean, they just gave up more goals than Arsenal did. But no, they played well today. As far as that, though, Joe, I think we're good to go tonight. Good stuff on the NFLX. By the way, before we go, just confirm, what are you on tomorrow?
I have not made my picks in the NFL for tomorrow. I want to go over some more notes tonight, and some of the metrics that I do use. But no, I've honestly not made my NFL picks for tomorrow. But you can visit me at offshoreinsiders.com. In fact, as soon as I get off with you, I'm going to go drink a Gatorade, say hi to my family, come on back down here to the dungeon, and finalize my picks.
There you go, Joe. One thing here, Vig Simon's mentioning, Joe, there's no better time to watch Premier League than now. The coverage is good and expansive. So
yeah, and I can move. Of course, I can watch it here on one of my many computers, but I can also move some of my laptops into my TV room. So I do love to watch it, but I'll have to take time away from my handicapping, which I don't like to do.
And you never want to do that. Joe, great as always. Good to have you on. We appreciate it. All the listeners, we appreciate it. It's a nice little group, a nice little cult tonight. We will be on tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern, with the Right Side of Campus. Donnie Rightside and I will go over the entire card. Ask Joe who he thinks the Rookie of the Year will be. Joe, what do you think?
Oh boy, again, I don't really like to make any futures bets, and I don't even remember if we even previewed this, earlier. So I don't really know if I have somebody off the top of my head, but I'll have to go over my notes and I'll come up with a good long shot for Rookie of the Year. Of course, last year I said the long shot was going to be Christian Hackenberg, and that didn't work out too well. But so you probably don't want to ask me anyway.
I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, he's a speed demon. Yeah, he's a great breakaway player, so that's not a bad choice.
I'm going to go Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette, one of those two.
Yeah, well, Fournette, we'll see. It looked like I don't know if he was able to take the beating in college over the long run. At times he seemed to wear down, and it'll be interesting to see how he does over the 16-game schedule. But that's not a bad bet.
Where is Donnie tonight? Donnie is I don't know. I don't know where Donnie is. I haven't talked to him. I guess he's hanging with his wife. I would think. I don't know. Donnie's been away and doing his thing, so I guess he needs some time off. We'll be back though tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern, Joe, with the Right Side of Canvas. We will see you next week. We'll look forward to your videos and SBR breaking down the preseason. Everyone have a great night. I got to go get a haircut. Joe has to study the card. We'll catch you tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern, here on SBR Forum.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. Thank you, sir.